So how do we know that the Archbishop distrusted the Pope?
In the 1960s, he described Rome, that is, the Pope's diocese, as neo-modernist and neo-Protestant. In saying this, Archbishop Lefebvre wasn't talking about some bishops in some parts of the world who allowed liturgical abuses or deviant theology. The Archbishop was talking about the papacy, upon which Christ said he would build his church, and against which he promised that the powers of hell would not prevail. Later on, this is what the Archbishop said about St. John Paul II in a 1987 letter to the men he would consecrate. The See of Peter and posts of authority in Rome being occupied by antichrists, the destruction of the kingdom of our Lord is being rapidly carried out. End quote. Again, please note, the See of Peter or the Pope's diocese means the Pope himself, who approves all that diocese teaches. Archbishop Lefebvre's scathing words haven't been repudiated by the Society. We can't imagine any saint saying this about a reigning pontiff, and it's in stark contrast to Father David Pagliarani's affirmation this year in the SSPX Declaration of Faith, quote, "The Roman Pontiff, the Vicar of Christ, is the sole possessor of supreme authority over the whole Church." End quote. How can this be believed and yet Lefebvre's statement not repudiated?
But didn't Archbishop Lefebvre only say these things because popes after the council taught heresy?
Popes, as the universal teachers of the Church, can't teach heresy. The First Vatican Council in 1870 stated, "The See of St. Peter always remains unblemished by any error, in accordance with the divine promise of our Lord." End quote. Remember, the See of Peter is another way of saying the Pope's teaching. As the Catechism tells us, even when the Pope is not teaching infallibly, Christ always helps him to teach the faithful what is true. And in response to the Pope's teaching, Canon 752 from the Church's Code of Law states that we Catholics are bound to submit our minds and wills to the Pope's teaching authority, not as mindless robots forced to comply, but as those who know they're submitting to Christ's authority. And in over 2,000 years of Church history, no Pope, as Pope, has ever taught heresy, and anyone who says differently hasn't studied the matter closely enough. All the myths of popes teaching heresy, and detractors can only offer 3 or 4, have been debunked. And when it seems that a magisterial teaching from the past contradicts one in the present, a Catholic, as Cardinal Ratzinger explained in 1998, should assume they have misunderstood one or both teachings and re-look at the matter, rather than assume that the magisterium is wrong.
But SSPX sees it differently, that the Church's leadership has been intent on destroying the Church since 1962.
Let's try to see what the Society sees. On the one hand, they have many priests willing to die for sacred tradition. They serve in many countries, in numerous chapels where the Mass is celebrated beautifully, attended by young and usually large families serious about the faith. Contrast this with the SSPX vision of what they call the post-conciliar Church, where one can at times experience Novus Ordo Masses celebrated horrendously. They think they see doctrinal and moral deviations and think the Church is being destroyed, even though Christ promised it never would be. And since the Society only has access to certain evidence, many of its followers know nothing about the large number of Catholic families, religious, priests, bishops, men and women dispersed throughout the world, embracing the immense theological riches, liturgical and pastoral renewal generated by the Council. Nor does SSPX recognize the incalculable good done in and outside the Church to draw people to Christ over the past 60 years, much of which is known to God alone. And there are beautifully celebrated Novus Ordo Masses throughout the world without any liturgical abuses. We now have an impressive array of post-Vatican II canonized saints who embraced and lived the Council's reforms, like St. Teresa of Calcutta, St. Carlo Acutis, Blessed Fulton Sheen, who was one of the bishops at the Council. This is not to mention the popes who upheld the teachings of the Second Vatican Council who have been beatified or canonized: St. John the 23rd, Blessed John Paul I, St. Paul VI, St. John Paul II, and Catholics must accept beatifications and canonizations. The fact of liturgical, pastoral, doctrinal, or moral aberrations after the Council, or the sheer ignorance of what the Council taught, is not the Church's fault, and proves nothing more than that the darnel grows up with the wheat, and that's nothing new.